Boo!
All right, so now we're live. Apologies there, guys. I forgot to hit the go live button. It's been that kind of a day today.
That's
You know,
what was
weird.
going on. I was like counting down and it just did nothing. All right.
Weird. Anyways, welcome, guys. This is Ricky with the Chronicles of Mysterious Universe with my buddy Josh, or JB333, and we're going to start tonight's show. All right.
Yes, sir. It's
So
been a
what's up? How's it
crazy
going?
oh man, honestly, it's going really well. I started my new thing on this yes, what day is today? Tuesday? Yesterday? I started yesterday, man.
Oh,
I absolutely love it.
night and day, right? Lead off the SharePoint.
Oh my goodness, is it much better for my brain right now. But
I bet. I'm jealous. You don't even have that option anymore, man.
yeah, the I don't know, man. It's definitely helping me. It's something I needed. Um Yeah, what we mentioned last week on our show, we were going to talk about the reptilians because it's completely unavoidable when you research the UFO subject, when you research anything in the occult, this always comes up. And
That's for
like, there's
sure.
been a long-standing conspiracy about the reptilian conspiracy theory. I'm sure most people have heard, but for those that haven't, it's like the idea that most of the government, high-ranking government officials, are actually secretly these shape-shifting reptilian. It's one of those things that always like anytime you think about somebody who's a conspiracy theorist or whatever, this comes up. They're like, "Oh, you believe in the reptile people?" Automatically, and now it becomes a joke, right? But
Yeah.
um, I don't know. There's again, this is something that comes up everywhere. Not been able to avoid it.
I mean, why not? I mean, with how crazy the world is, and we're talking about being created by aliens and stuff. So why would this be any different?
It's really not. Yeah, I mean, and again, one of the popular theories about the Anunnaki, there's doesn't seem to be an in between. They're either like completely, they're all reptilians, or they're just not at all. But it is, I
Yeah,
mean, this group is definitely mentioned in quite a few ancient texts, like the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean talks about them as the Dark Brothers. Um, talks about how they literally feed on the negative energy of humanity, essentially, just like how there's a positive and that there has to be opposite, right? Like
right.
if there's a God, there then has to be the opposite force.
Has
Um,
to be balanced. The yin and the yang.
right. And I mean, there's depictions of like reptile looking beings and all kinds of different folklore, not, I mean, ancient writings, the Egyptian hieroglyphics, all kinds of stuff. Statues that have been found depicting reptilian beings, like even there's cultures in the southern part of the United States and whatnot that have say they interacted with beings that came up underground. All kinds of like different occult stories where people say they've encountered these types of groups.
Yeah.
So it's essentially like the same type of thing as like the Greys or something like that. People have legitimately seen these. Are all these people lying? Who knows? But
I mean, there are so many different cultures and believe in them. Like they call them the Dracos, Draconians. They come from a place called the Draco Galaxy or whatever. But and they're saying most of them tend to be malevolent. They're the bad guys. I mean,
right.
we've heard all kind of different stories about these things, but
One of the prominent people, which this is something I actually found out when I was researching this, is that one of the people that's really famous for putting this out is David Icke. Most people, like that's when they think of this theory, that's what they think of. David Icke is a pretty prominent researcher in this field about this kind of stuff. He actually did not. He's not. He came from a mainstream like media background. Like he was actually a famous footballer. I'm assuming that means soccer player.
yeah,
So uh, he was actually on. I think he was on BBC for a long time. He had a long-standing show. Like, and then one day he did this show and he came out about all his weird beliefs, and then he was completely ridiculed and blacklisted. And he didn't gain anything monetarily from doing it. Right? He actually took a huge hit. I mean, I'm sure he's doing decently well now, but because he's famous putting these things out.
yeah. It's come a long way since the old days. I mean, it's all over the news these days where they capture celebrities where their eyes are changing or something changes. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
like
you take it with a grain of salt because Photoshop's a thing. It's so easy to edit and change his videos, and to the point now that if you saw something real, you wouldn't believe it anyway. You think it was fake.
Yeah, that's honestly true, man. It's hard to say what is real and fake, especially when we're dealing with TV, movies, because I mean, the existence of the deep fake software, for example, like what is real? You know what I mean? You can literally recreate anything.
And it's so advanced, you literally could not tell the difference between that and the real person.
Right.
And that's what we have available. Imagine what people living above us have in the government, what they can do. It's even beyond what we can do. I mean,
Right. Yeah, that's you know, I always think about technology that they got that they're testing behind the scenes because we don't get it until, 10 years. Like they're 10 years ahead of us
oh yeah,
guaranteed at least, like at the
oh, yes.
minimum.
When they released the Nighthawk, the stealth bomber, to the public, it had already been out for what, 15 years before they released it to actually existing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, more weapons to kill each other over nonsense,
Mm-hmm.
but
See, whatever tech we
um,
have now, the government's already at least 10 years ahead, if not more.
yeah, that's dude. I can't like the thing when you talk about stuff like that, people are like, "Oh no, that can't be the case." They would have to tell us. No, my God, man! Like you got to get that out
But
of your
with
head
that,
that they're going to tell you anything.
mm-hmm.
Um, it's been fun researching this, man. But like I've there's so many things I've come across over the years and this, watching videos that like people talk about it. It's a pretty common thing. It's either a lot of people. There's a huge debate. So the conspiracy community usually gets divided by this subject, and it usually comes back to the whole Anunnaki thing because again, a lot of people believe that like David Icke, for example, believes that they were completely reptilian. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that they were completely negative. And again, they could be completely negative based on the information that we've been given. I mean, there's not a lot of positive stuff that came out of that and essentially created a slave race to do their bidding and have kept control over them, minus a couple somewhat benevolent, you know, beings that had a conscious, quote unquote, who
Mm-hmm.
decided to keep us alive. Um,
Yeah.
Mainly Inky or Aya.
I think the biggest one right now, as far as conspiracy goes, is that the entire royal family in England are reptilians, and they have
That's
been.
a that's a pretty common one too.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking, man. I mean, in all honesty, if you look at like any of the controlling groups in the world, and you could probably find a link between this and that. Any group, you can be like, oh yeah, they're reptilian beings or whatever. Like any prominent people in our government offices, like different presidents, but not only that, people in Hollywood are claimed to be,
Mm-hmm.
these shape shifting beings because like the people really running the show understand that like the common person is heavily influenced by the stuff they watch on TV and the media and the people, they can literally are being controlled and manipulated on a scale that's unimaginable. But
Mm-hmm.
and that's honestly part of the game. Again, I go back to the law of one to reference stuff like this. It's like again, there's beings that go to say we die, go to heaven, like the fourth density of love. Like we are on the positive seeking path. So the beings that would seek the negative would go to this version, but they would, their mission is to enslave other minds, like
Yeah.
through any means necessary. So there again exists a positive and a negative source here. But again, ultimately, even that's why I respect the hell out of the book is the source of this like doesn't put a positive or a negative. It's like that's terms that you use because in the greater scheme of everything is just the creator experiencing itself. But
Yeah.
that's hard for people to grasp because they're like, "Oh no, you're saying there's no evil." That's not what I said. I said in the grand scheme, if you start thinking about it from a super high divine perspective, not like from down here on your day to day, game. They call it one of the ways that one of the persons that the person that channeled the information calls it. They call it playing the little game with the little G and the big game with the big G. So like you play the big spiritual game when you make these big choices versus the little day to day choices you make. What coffee to get, what job to
Yeah.
get, right?
Well, it's
Um,
interesting. Did you ever hear the story? I might have told you about it before. the lizard man sighting back in the 1980s in South Carolina.
I feel like yes. I think I've read the article that you sent me.
I forget the exact year, but for people who aren't aware, it's like the early 80s, and there's this guy driving out in the swamp area of South Carolina, and he ends up getting a flat tire. And this is out, and it's dark, it's out in the middle of nowhere. He changes the tire, and while he's loading the parts back into his trunk, he hears something rustling behind him. And when he turns around and looks, he can kind of make out a silhouette of something, and he sees these glowing red eyes. And as he gets closer, he sees what he describes as a 7-foot tall, bipedal reptilian looking creature with like 3 fingers, razor sharp claws. And it starts coming at him. He jumps in the car, and as soon as he closes the door, he's in a wrestling match. This thing's trying to open the door as he's trying to close it. He eventually gets the door closed. He takes off. He gets up to about 30 miles an hour, and this thing's keeping up with him. That's that fast. And eventually he outruns it. And he's so freaked out and terrified, he goes straight to the sheriff's department, files a report, and it's an actual documented report with the sheriff's department. And you can actually see claw marks and stuff on his car. So there's physical evidence that something happened.
Right. I think I feel like the X-Files did an episode on that.
Probably.
Like referencing that. And a lot of obviously people in the know that the X-Files is actually putting out legitimate information.
Yes, they are.
Especially like the last season that they just did. Like there's one episode in there, like it will blow your mind if you watch it. It's talking about I think I showed it to you. There's like many clips on the internet about it. But,
I've seen it. Yep. It's been a while, but
yeah, that one.
They dropped some truth bombs.
And the same kind of stuff we've been saying, that the world is not at all what it seems. And
let me see if I can find it.
So what you were saying, like they go by the Draco. Draco is the most common name I've been able to find.
Draconians.
Like, people call them
Dracos.
Dracos. Yeah. Another name is the Saurians or the Reptoids. They've popped up in science fiction, over the years, time and time again, because people are obviously fascinated with the subject. Authors like Robert Howard, Clark Ashton Smith, and H.P. Lovecraft, have all written, extensive novels about them. And as the saying goes with science fiction, sometimes real life mimics fiction, but more often fiction mimics real life. That's always a quote that's messed with me. I love it. But
I think I found that clip. Let me see if this is the right one here. And for some reason, there's no sound. Unless it's just me. Hang on for just a sec. I need headphones for this one.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. All right. I'm going to bring it on. Let me know if you can hear it, so these guys can know what we're talking about. Share screen. X-Files. All right. Let me know if you can hear it.
Well, that's the question of the day.
This is an internet lunatic. You're not saying you believe him.
Hold on, Agent Einstein. You're talking to a scientist.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay.
Forgive me, Assistant Director. It may sound insensitive, but the suggestion is pure science fiction.
What I'm saying, Agent Einstein, is that the facts, as I understand them, cannot be discounted out of hand.
Might be the wrong clip.
No one has the right or the ability to tamper with your DNA.
Oh, this is the
Unless we
alien
give them
DNA
that
thing.
ability.
Interesting
When you
clip.
say they're tampering with our DNA, that they're able to shut down our immune systems by the addition of something to our DNA,
Yes, but I don't know how exactly.
or how it's being triggered,
I don't know that either.
or why it's happening now.
It's an interesting.
We need to act quickly.
You were right about that.
Well, I was wrong about the science. I was wrong about what's causing it. Dead wrong, in fact.
But it's clearly a widespread failure of our immune systems.
Through gene tamper. A virus within a virus that was put there through the smallpox vaccine. It's what these men are calling the Spartan
COVID?
virus.
Can't talk about it. Can't mention the name.
What's wrong with the science?
Okay. The Spartan virus removes the adenosine deaminase gene from your
This
DNA.
was
Removes
not the
ADO
reptilian
gene
one, but
from your immune system will simply vanish.
Yeah, but I'm not getting sick.
It's only a matter of time.
Okay? So how does it work? How does the virus remove the
I haven't seen
ADO
this
gene?
A process called
this
CRISPR.
is So if you pause it
RNA
real
and
quick.
protein cutting genes at exact locations.
Exactly. But in this instance, you
All right.
So I think this is like one of the 2-part episodes or whatever. Like the part, I don't know if the truth bomb you're talking about. Are you looking for the lizard one, or are you looking for the one I'm talking
The
about?
truth bomb one that
So
that
that's
Mulder
like,
saying it. But
that's at the it's like when they're talking to that conspiracy dude who lands in the helicopter. I think it's at the beginning of the episode. But in any case, the thing that they're talking about is actually, it's random that you actually put that on, because I mean, essentially that's one of the ideas behind the whole, the jab or whatever, is that essentially it's manipulating the DNA of the whole world. And their idea is that, what they're saying, and they're like, oh, they're going to be able to shut us down by changing our DNA. And it takes me right back to the Tower of Babel and the DNA manipulation that they talk about in that. Like, how do you think that they would do that? And there's, again, our understandings of science that the public knows is very limited. And, the mNRA thing that has been introduced to the populace on a massive scale, again, has not been heavily, this is like first human trials for this, first of all. And that could easily be something that's actually changing our DNA.
yeah,
I'm not saying that it is. I'm not saying that I necessarily believe that it is, because I hope not, because I definitely have it. So,
I mean, they threatened us with our jobs to get the jab. I mean,
yeah, it's crazy, man.
so they desperately wanted us to get it.
And it's, yeah, I don't know. That's a sore subject for me, but I guess I could have just been like, nah, I don't want to do my job anymore. But in any case, I got to support my kids somehow. But
I hear you. I
but
think this might be the part we're looking at here.
Everyone but the chosen.
by tampering with their DNA.
no, it's not
Through
it either.
gene editing.
Why do such a thing and lie about it? Oh, and government.
See the
Oh, wait,
Tuskegee
there it is.
experiments on black
There it
men
is.
in the 30s, Henrietta Lacks.
What are they trying to do?
That's the missing piece.
But it's not hard to imagine a government hiding, hoarding technology for 70 years at the expense of human life and the future of the planet. Driven not only by corporate greed, but a darker objective.
The
Preach it.
takeover of America.
And then the world itself, by any means necessary, however violent or cruel or efficient. By severe drought brought on by weather wars,
We're seeing
conducted
this now.
secretly using aerial contaminants and high-altitude electromagnetic waves. In a state of perpetual war. To create problem, reaction, solution scenarios to distract, enrage, and enslave American citizens at home. With tools like the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act, which abridge the Constitution in the name of national security. The militarization of police forces in cities across the U.S., the building of prison camps by the Federal Emergency Management Agency with no stated purpose, the corporate takeover of food and agriculture, pharmaceuticals and healthcare, even the military in clandestine agendas to fatten, dull, sicken, and control a populace already consumed by consumerism.
And I encourage you all to go shopping more.
A government that taps your phone, collects your data, and monitors your whereabouts with impunity. A government preparing to use that data against you when it strikes. And the final takeover begins.
The takeover of America.
By a well-oiled and well-armed multinational group of elites that will cull, kill, and subjugate.
Happening as we sit here.
It's happening all around us.
The other shoe waiting to drop.
It'll probably start on a Friday. The banks will announce a security action necessitating their computers to go offline all weekend.
Digital money will disappear.
They can just steal your money?
Followed by the detonation of strategic electromagnetic pulse bombs to knock out major grids.
What will seem like an attack on America by terrorists or Russia.
An invasion of the U.S.
The Russians tried it in 47.
They're trying it now.
So the funny thing about what he just said is, so like the idea that they could, go out, it'll happen on a Friday, the banks will announce this. So Biden just signed into a law, they're trying to essentially do a centralized currency. So like it's going to be a centralized digital currency, which means, again, they would have the ability to completely shut off the money. Right now it would be, you have to go out through different channels. Obviously the government can freeze your assets right now, but in a completely centralized thing, they'd be able to do that. Like none of this is far-fetched when you really, really look at what they're saying. Like, why did they need to tell us that? Like, it's crazy. It's literally, there's so many things in there that is legitimately true. It's absolutely obvious, that, with the Edward Snowden stuff, they're 100% confirmed to be spying on the populace.
Mhm.
And again, people still deny this stuff, and like, there's a reason why they want this guy. There's a reason why they want Edward Snowden, because of the stuff that he's leaked to the populace. A lot of people think he's a traitor. Like, he's a traitor because he's telling you that literally you're being, surveillanced and monitored. And most people's response to that is, "Oh, I don't have anything to hide." But that's not the point. Like, the government, you can't get information on our government. Like, they lie as a matter of policy. So why is it they can keep secrets, but we're not allowed to? Like, that's like, that's one of the main reasons that people think the government is run by this, again,
secret government,
reptilian beings.
Mm-hmm.
But like the thing about the reptilians is, like, I'm not 100% like on the fence that they are literally shape shifting the people and they're running. These people are running. However, do I think that the politicians in these key places are being controlled by a higher authority, and they could very well be like beings like this? Absolutely. Like, without a doubt, I think that that could easily be the case. And one of the things I was reading about is it said that these like reptilian beings or whatever are actually from the fourth dimension of the negative side. Just like, again, we have the fourth dimension, which is considered heaven or the ass, whatever you want to call it. In our world, there's a fourth dimension on that side, and they're able to basically, you're able to interact with beings in a third dimensional reality. You can always go to the one underneath you, according, again, to the law of one. It's just a matter of being, opening the right channels, I guess.
Yes, they're both the same dimension, just different ends of the spectrum, so they can overlap.
And it is actually said that, like, our planet is, capable of holding, all the way up till the fifth dimension, like, and it's going to be there. Apparently, that's that's where the idea of transitioning to the 5D. But they're talking about our planet.
Ascension,
like talking about our planet ascending. Obviously, we'll be taken up too, but you can't just skip an entire dimension and go to the next one, I would think, but maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. That's a good question.
You ever heard about the theory about underneath LA or whatever, the
hidden cities, the tunnels?
The hidden city. Yeah, dude, like when they, I guess, did these ground scans or whatever, they found, all these crazy, it's like a whole underground city there. A lot of people said it was like shaped like a lizard. And, there's all kinds of stories around that area. Like, if you look back in the, like in mythology of like these, again, reptilian beings living down there, lizard folks living under the ground. That's where a lot of us,
they've been here longer than we have.
I mean, to me, that's not as far fetched as like other people would, want it to be. Like, we have this picture of the way the universe is because we've been indoctrinated, that, you evolve, we were either evolved from apes into people. If apes were able to evolve into people, why couldn't, lower species of animals evolve into consciousness? You know what I mean? To me, it's not that hard to believe because, again, I have a really open mind, but a lot of people, that's too much. You know what I mean? Like, it's too much, the idea. But all over the world, again, you have these depictions of ancient peoples dealing with not only like ant-like people, but, like all kinds of different types of beings. And we look at all this as mythology, but again, what if you started looking at this stuff as though it was true? It's not mythology. And then it opens up a whole nother world.
It does. Now, there's a lot of this in pop culture as well. Now, have you ever seen or ever watched Doctor Who, for example?
No, I've never watched it. I know I've heard of it, but I never watched it. But
well, there's a species that are basically reptilian, and there's one character who's a big part of the show. And this is what she looks like. And they say, even in the show, in this episode, that her entire race lives in the center of the earth, or way down there, and that they've been down there before we were here, and they're kind of in like a stasis or a sleep or something, but somehow, and he can shapeshift too, so he can take human form. So a lot of that, even in pop culture, is reptilians. It's very interesting.
Right. Let's see. So like one of the other, you ever heard of like the winged serpent or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a name that they attribute to the Anunnaki god Ea or Enki, whatever you want to call him. So a lot of people say that is a representation that he was like a reptilian being. And this winged serpent thing is all over the world. So it's not in just, the Sumerian area, like Iraq and all that neat stuff over there, or the Middle East and Southern Africa. It's actually, they have depictions of this being in South America, all through South America. Like apparently the winged serpent came and they were taught good stuff or they were taught bad. So like there's apparently two different versions of like this being coming down. And again, they talk about that also in Law of One. So they say at the same time, they were trying to influence the people for the good. The other side was also trying to influence them for the bad. And a lot of times that's why, like for the Bible, for example, such a mixture of positive and negative things is because like if a positive, thinking person is open to receiving all kinds of communication that is like not aware that it's being manipulated, it'll receive, messages of doom and gloom. You're all going to die. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
Let's see. One was going to talk about this author, Robert Howard, wrote about the Serpent Man in his story, The Shadow Kingdom, in 1929. So he was inspired by the idea of the co-founder of the Theosophical Society, Helena Blavatsky. I like that name. So Blavatsky's great work was The Secret Doctrine, in which he talked about the dragon men who might have inhabited a lost civilization called Lemuria. Wasn't aware of that. I haven't heard that one before. Like that was, they said they could have been part of Lemuria. But like even if you look into the Atlantean records on this stuff, like again, like in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth or whatever, he talks about there was a group. They call them the Dark Brothers, and apparently their goal was to manipulate and enslave. That's exactly what it says in there. So again, I think we're dealing with, a really ultimately a cosmic battle of good versus evil here. And these may be the people that are literally feeding off the negative energy of the planet, but also at the same time creating it. So they create all this crazy chaos that's going on in the world, especially using like social media. Like we're using social media right now as a tool to, inspire and get people thinking, right? Mm-hmm. But it can also be used and has been used as a weapon. Like without a doubt, if you don't think that social media is being used as a weapon, you have not been paying attention at all. Like,
definitely not.
Absolutely, it is being used. Like one of the great hack that I watched on Netflix is one of the ones that really solidified it for me. Like the company called Cambridge Analytica that got busted using military grade software to literally influence the minds of the people during that election. And it works. Like they proved that it works. So now, of course, they're using this stuff. Like they're using it to drive up the hate between us and like create stuff that's not even there. Like when you're out in the general public on a day-to-day basis, like none of this stuff
5G is a big part of that too, though.
Right. Again, that was something that's a big conspiracy thing going on right now too. Like our understanding of these types of technologies is limited based on what. So like the only thing we know about 5G is what the telecom companies say, and they say it's safe. Just like how they said cigarettes are safe. Just like how they said, cell phones were safe and not causing cancer when it's absolutely been proven that they did. And there's tons and tons of like legitimate doctor testimony that's been suppressed on the internet about 5G and how the insurance companies are not insuring the telecom companies over this. Like, dude, there's so much. Like, it's not been properly tested. 5G was originally used like as a military thing. Like the military is using 5G.
It's a very strong radio wave.
Yeah, it's more complicated than just a cell tower, right? It's like, again, people don't really understand what it is. Like you have to put, if you looked at these cell phone towers, they put these 5G things everywhere. So they put them on the
I'm on
like all the
5G
power
right now.
lines. Right, me too. They put them on all the power lines. Like we've had 5G on our Wi-Fi in a while. It's not the same thing, man.
No, it's not. I mean, they
It's
say the range is shorter. That's why there's more towers compared to the old system. It's faster and stronger, but it has a weaker range.
right, and like you look at. Have you ever walked by cell phone towers? The little warning signs about the health risks of being near the cell phone towers, but trying to say at the same time, they have these signs that say that it's a health risk, but at the same time trying to say it's not a risk. Like it's like which is it, man? It either is or it isn't. Like that's the kind of world we live in, where it's like, man, I cannot believe that that it's the truth is in front of our face, but we're also being lied to at the same time. Like,
yeah, like I used to do tech support for an internet provider and cell phone coverage, and what they taught us, which is common sense in a way, is that the closer you are to the towers, the more compressed those waves are, and then they spread out over time, over a period or distance is what I'm looking for.
Right.
But if you're right next to it, you're getting those waves very densely compacted.
Right, and like on areas like say Seattle, for example, like they're on every single building. They have to be, and they're not just on the single building; they're on the floors. Each floors have these towers. Like it's we're not gonna know. So that's the thing; it's not gonna kill everybody immediately, man. If it's gonna do it, it's gonna be over a long period of time. Just like the idea of the jab or whatever you want to call it, like. We're not dealing with something we're only 2 years in. We have absolutely no idea what several years from now is going to happen. We don't. And to say that, dude, it's crazy to me. Like it's funny, we hadn't talked about that stuff in a while. Now all of a sudden the people were in there. You better go get boosted. Better go do this. And like, okay, so is COVID done? Or we all need to go get boosted again? Like,
that's
I don't know, man.
Conveniently, COVID's no longer in the news. Like every day during the peak timing, every day there was a counter on a ticker of the news saying how many people have died or how many people have gotten sick, and that's just gone all of a sudden.
And they never once during that whole thing, they never once said how many people recovered, how many people have survived. We can get through this together. They've only told us, doom and gloom. And to scare you into selling something that the pharmaceutical companies obviously on the board of the advertisement for these places, which is you can look into this, it's proven. It's obviously what they wanted them to tell them, and like only certain doctors were allowed to tell us stuff. Why is that? Like, why are other doctors being suppressed? Like that's what the whole
a lot of doctors were against it. Yeah.
Right. It's the whole Elon Musk thing buying Twitter. Like that's what it's really about in the long run. It's not about a conservative ideal. It's about the absolute suppression of any kind of alternative information. Like that's the thing. That should not be legal. Like people, you're able to spew one side, but you can't even slightly argue on another perspective. Like, how is that fair, man? And you get everybody was always like, you're wrong, you're killing people.
It was to the point where they said we're anti-American by not getting the vaccine.
Dude. And like they're like, you need to get it to protect your family. And then they come out, oh, we knew that it never protected, from spreading it. But the whole time they were telling us 100%, this is the best way to protect your family. Like, come on, man. Like these people, dude, I cannot believe that people are not up in arms about the illegal. I mean, a lot of people are, but I'm trying to say we never said it. Stop the spread. You cannot tell me that, dude. There's so many examples of that, but we're going off topic here. Subject pisses me off, man.
Yeah, they don't know how I feel about it. Like they threatened us to get it, and not a single person, at least in our agency, lost their job.
Right, not a single person lost a job, and it's crazy. I was glad to hear that a lot of the people, the New York Supreme Court, is going to reinstate a lot of the people that were fired over it, and they're going to get their back pay, and they absolutely should. For sticking to their guns, because you should not ever in a free country, a free world, you should not be forced to do something, regardless of what it is. That is
not the way they twist it. We weren't forced to. We volunteered to.
Yes, volunteering to lose your $100,000 a year job. You know what I mean?
You can become homeless and starve. You don't have to get the job.
And saying things like that is always funny because the people controlling the game obviously know that we have no choice. We have to work to survive. You know, we're the cogs in the
We
wheel.
have
We're the
to.
like that's the thing. You know, most people don't until you start to wake up and really question the world around you. Like we definitely are slaves in this system.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And yes, a few people get lucky and make it out, and then bam, you're able to work the system. But there's so many people that are telling you, the tax code is only
Become the
worked
elite.
in for the favor of the rich.
Yeah.
The it's stupid. Why even is the income tax? Why does it exist at all? So we can fund fund these people into millionaires. So these people can do insider trading, but we can't.
Mhm.
I don't know, man. That's the type of stuff. Again, that's why I'm down this path, is because it's proven time and time again that this stuff is real. Whether or not, again, the reptilian stuff is real, it's not, it doesn't matter. Like what matters is the stuff you can already prove, and it's a laundry list, as you know. Um, but again, most people just would rather turn a blind eye to this and keep being a cog in the wheel because it's easier.
Well, I will share the dream I had last night, and I've never experienced this type of being as far as in dreams. I've experienced everything else, as you know, ascended masters, gods and goddesses, angels, demons. I've experienced all these kind of entities in my dream time.
Mm-hmm.
But last night, I can't remember the details, but yeah. There was some sort of major natural disaster happened, and I think I was in Japan for some reason. It was either a tsunami or an ash cloud or something, and I was trying to take cover from it. So I was up against like a hill or something, just trying to get against the wall. And in the dream, I blacked out, but my cell phone was recording. And when I came to in the dream, I looked at a video of the cell phone, and I saw these entities. The first one was like a giant statue of a head, kind of blocking what was trying to hit me. And then I saw this black mass with these razor sharp teeth. I'm thinking demon. And as it took a form, it became reptilian. It had the tail, it was on 2 feet, and it was a tall lizard man. But in the dream, they were protecting me from what was trying to, come at me as far as that disaster goes. And I've never, ever since before then, dreamed of a reptilian before that I can
I was
remember.
trying to protect you. That's interesting, man.
Yeah.
Like,
well, who says we're all bad? I mean, they're considered bad, but most people, it's like a book by its cover. They look bad, so they are bad. So who says they're good ones too? That does look bad because that's the way they look to us, at least. But they're good creatures too.
I mean, easily, man. It could easily be the case. Again, like we could be
But it looked
dealing,
terrifying. It looked like a
like
demon.
if there is an entire, say, race of these creatures, let's say that, like obviously, just like the human race, there's going to be people, that choose
Good and
one
bad.
side or the other. So that's why I said, like, I don't believe I don't think you can make blanket statements about anything. And that's, what we want to do in this world and what we've been trained and indoctrinated to do is making blanket statements.
Mm-hmm.
All these people are this, or all these people are that, all Democrats this, all Republicans that. Like everybody does it. And at least everybody that's subject to the manipulation going on in the world does that. But which is most. Most people you encounter on a day-to-day basis to be like, the dang Democrats said this, or the dang
all
Republicans, all their
Mhm.
bigoted, racist, and it cannot be the case, man. Not everybody on one side can be what you're saying. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
And if you start to get away from that stuff and start to really look in between the lines, the idea of read between the lines, like stuff starts to become more interesting. Like this is researching this subject has definitely opened my eyes a little bit. Like I looked at it, because a lot of people paint them as nothing but negative beings, but what if that isn't the case? Like one of the other ideas about them is like that they were, a lot of these statue depictions is that they were birds. And, the picture on the front of the emerald tablets or whatever is of Thoth is he's like a giant bird guy, right? He's got a head of an ibis. And I don't know, man. It's something that's definitely fascinated me. Like,
yeah, same. Well, getting back to reptilians, have you ever seen the movie Jupiter Ascending?
No, I'm gonna write that on another list of things.
They call it a documentary, even though it's a sci-fi movie.
Really?
And it has a race of reptilians. Some are winged, some are not. And actually, what I can do is bring up the trailer for you.
Have you heard about the signal? I told you about that. The signals that the probe was getting from one
The
or two
moon,
of those moons.
Mhm.
Getting radio signals. How do they explain that?
You can't. All right, I'm going to bring up the trailer here. You would definitely like this movie. Because it covers
Jupiter
a lot of this stuff. Jupiter Ascending. All right, I got it. It only sound doesn't work with the headphones for some reason for the videos. So.
Oh, that's why you can't hear me. You got the headphones on.
You're the perfect hunting machine. Fearless. Relentless. You've been searching for one thing your whole life. And she's down there.
It's got Mila Kunis in it? Hell yeah.
It's her.
Good. Kill her.
Who are you?
Made a hobby.
See his ears? Elvish.
It can be difficult for people from underdeveloped worlds to hear that their planet is not the only inhabited planet. Your Majesty, Kane was the best soldier I ever went into battle with.
If she's what you say she is, we're not getting off this planet without a fight.
Your Earth is a very small part of a very large industry.
I feel I have you at somewhat of a disadvantage.
Is that because you kidnapped me?
Some lives will always matter more than others.
See the winged reptilian.
Mm-hmm.
Jupiter!
There's so much of them, but they're in there.
When did this movie come out, man?
But people say it's more of a documentary than a movie. But you would really like it. It might be on Netflix or something. I'm not sure.
I'm about to check that right now, man. It's got Mila Kunis in it, first of all.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the things that I took out of that, so again, whenever I watch trailers for anything, they put a lot of I'm always looking in the background for stuff that they say. So one of the things is that it's a very small part of a large industry. Your Earth is a very small part, and that's again one of the common themes about what we talked about last week with the Greys is we are like a science project, science experiment, but we're also there are apparently a lot of these beings were said to collect minerals from our planet, mainly gold. There's lots of different theories. Again, the Anunnaki, the whole idea for them coming here was because of gold and precious minerals.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that could be what it's talking about. It could be talking about how there's genetic manipulation going on in the different planet. I mean, you can see that, to me, I think that the only way to explain human history at all is to be, something was definitely done. We are not, cannot be, all that there is. History is not correct.
We don't even belong on Earth. We're not natives to the Earth.
Nah, I don't think so.
I've seen it firsthand. I've watched how all these animals can coexist together, but as soon as a human approaches them, they scatter and take off.
All you got to do is research what an invasive species is. Define what an invasive species is. You can see that the Earth, humans act like an invasive species on the Earth. A lot of people are waking up to this fact. A lot of people are trying to change it. However, we need a larger percent of the population to do it. And again, this is stuff that's suppressed. A lot of people, you'll be called a tree hugger and stuff. Yes, we need to just destroy the whole Earth because we have dominion over it, as it says in the Bible, right? We have dominion over the animals, so we should kill them all.
Which is a bunch of BS.
Right. That is not the case. We need to live, learn to live in symbionts.
Well, I've been saying it all my life. The Earth supposedly has been around for billions of years, And in a couple of generations, we've already practically destroyed it.
Yeah, like chances are, I mean, in all honesty, because again, we are dealing with billions of years of time, there's no way that we could prove that this exact thing has not happened before. We've destroyed the earth, been regurgitated, destroyed the earth, like it could easily be the case because there's no way to prove it otherwise. Like, science can only take us so far based on our observations because we can only dig so far. Like they're still finding older and older civilizations, and again, they have no way to explain this. They have no way to explain how the Sumerian civilization popped up out of nowhere, out of absolutely nowhere. They popped up and came to it. There was no precursor, nothing. They
Well,
popped
another
up.
good point. People are like, well, why can't we find the remnants of these civilizations? And another good movie that I saw was the remake of When the Earth Stood Still with Keanu Reeves. At the very end, where it was destroying everything, when that big old wave or whatever is destroying everything, it's only destroying inorganic materials.
Right.
It's destroy organic. So who says the same thing didn't happen back then? That's why we can't find these lost civilizations, because they were literally broken down into nothing.
Right. And like have you ever taken a walk to like some of the old ghost towns? Like they have a lot of them here in Washington. You can only see, the stone parts of the foundations of the houses because, wood is not going to stay around. So like things like the pyramids that were built with ridiculously large, heavy things, those have obviously stayed around for a long time, but even they have been weathered and, eroded.
Eroded, yeah.
So like, again, it's not that hard of a concept to believe, it could have been buried under the Sahara Desert, for example, perhaps, deserts expand. So the Sahara Desert, obviously at one point probably wasn't what it is. There could be so much buried under that.
And who knows how deep that sand is.
Dude, yeah, it's crazy. There's so much stuff under there. What is under Antarctica, for example?
As badly as they're protecting that, there's got to be something big down there.
Yeah, man. Again, when they talk about in the Emerald Tablets or whatever, they talk about like there's special places underground there that like there's caves. You can go in down there, and this is something that's not a conspiracy theory. Like there's caves that have these volcanic vents underneath them, so they have these big pockets of warm air where vegetation grows. Like they're said that there's whole groups of these reptilian beings that live down there, and they're interacting with the people down there and doing science. Like that's again another common theory about what's going on in Antarctica.
Have you ever been to a lava tube?
I have. Lava tube caves are one of my favorite things to go in.
When I was in Oregon, we went to one years ago, and it was miles, into the ground, and it's
right.
But in these cases, it never sees a lot of the day. So even though it was hot in the summertime, it's freezing cold in these places because light can't get down there. It never sees light. It's pitch black dark, the darkness you will ever see or not see, because there's literally no light down there unless you have a flashlight or something.
And again, like it's really not all that far-fetched to think that, these giant cave systems could exist where these beings live. Like, again, and if you go down to Peru, they've literally had to wall it off from the public because there's access to these literal just cave systems that go forever. They say that they span essentially the globe. But people go down there and get lost and don't ever come back out. Or, maybe they're getting taken care of by something down there. Who knows?
Well, that's how these caves were the lava tubes I went to. You can only go so far, and then suddenly it's blocked off. You can't go any further. Even though the caves continue, you can't go further into them. It's blocked off.
Yeah, a lot of times they say that they're blocked off for specific reasons.
Safety
but
reasons.
Yeah, like I've always thought, man, hey, what's going on down there? Like, dude, there's so many of these stories. If you research the subject like heavily, there's so many stories of like people encountering these beings down. Man, I love it. Like ever since I started learning about reptilians, it's hard for me to even go in the caves. I'm like, man, I thought I encountered something like that down there, especially when I go in there with the kids. But
what's also said that reptilians are very psychic.
Right.
They use telepathy. They can change shapes. They can go into your mind and make you do things. I mean, why not?
That's the it's said that they, if these interdimensional, especially if you can interact with an angel, for example, then obviously a demonic type being can interact with you and influence your thoughts by sending, essentially sending thoughts to you. And a lot of times if you're I practice this a lot when I get in really deep depression. So if you're in meditation and you have these super negative thoughts about yourself, that's not you. That's nothing. That's literally a darkness in you, or when you call a demon or whatever. That could be they could be sending those thoughts to you. So you can. That is not anything. Loving is not you. That's not your real self. That's something else. That's the ego, the dark side, whatever you want to call it. But you can practice, shooing that away. That isn't me. It works a lot. Sometimes it doesn't, but
especially when you're an empath.
yeah, yes, I'm
like when I'm at work, all those combined energies and emotions just put me in this mood where I'm just so bitter and angry at work. And when I get off work, I'm fine. That's why I have such a difficult time at work. And it's even worse at your airport, of course. But
yeah,
as busy as your airport is, but
it's night and day. It's only been 2 days, man, and it's been night and day for me as far as like psyche goes. Like I can tell that this stuff is just
you can actually enjoy going to work now, yeah.
Literally, man. And again, I've known this for a while. I've been kidding myself about it, but like, I'm actively choosing to go here, but I got to make a living somehow, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times I was able to before, as a regular officer, I could see the good in everything, but now because I'm forced to deal with the negative people on a daily basis because that's part of my job.
Yeah,
like I have to deal with the conflict. It's wild, dude. Then like I feel like it's something in the air. The idea that somebody says something is in the air, like because every single day I've been at work, somebody's been assaulted, somebody's been arrested, somebody's been, not allowed to fly or just dude it. Like if the public understood exactly the amount of negativity we deal with, like they maybe would be a little bit more understanding. And that's why unfortunately, a lot of my coworkers get really negative and nasty towards people because of they're just essentially rebounding. It doesn't make it correct. Absolutely not. And I try to tell people that all the time. Like,
we can all agree our job isn't hard, at least physically, but emotionally it drains you on a daily basis.
Sucks, man. Anybody who's ever worked in any kind of customer service can relate to that. Like it sucks. Any kind of dealing with the public sucks because unfortunately a lot of people are expressing their negative emotions onto the world.
They're assholes.
Or projecting, yeah. Yes, or they're just general assholes. But
you can be as nice as you want to be, and they're just treat you like dirt.
But honestly, like what I try to do, man, is I try to feel sorry for someone like that because like nobody who loves themselves is doing that to somebody or is talking to them. It is somebody who's obviously miserable. And it sucks, man.
Well, the number one rule is to treat others how you want to be treated.
Right. And again, there's a major cosmic reason for that. That's the thing that I'm trying to remember as I've been rereading the Law of One is essentially like when I'm talking to somebody, that's just another version of the creator walking around. So that's why I try to envision. I try to see everybody that way, and it does tend to help. But
then sometimes you forget.
Oh, it happens all the time, man.
Every day
like,
for me.
Obviously, like nobody's perfect. I'm not getting on talking on here and saying that I'm perfect or that I know everything. What it's fun is again to question the stuff around us, to research things like with an open mind. And really, this honestly is a good outlet, like we always talk about. But yeah, it's really easy to forget that everybody's human, having a human experience.
Yeah.
Or maybe the reptiles having a shape-shifting human experience.
And who knows? I mean, even for example, we do this as an outlet. I mean, obviously, even right now we have 0 watchers as far as live goes. We get very little output as far as people watching, but
Dude,
still fun to do.
Dude, people have been talking to me left and right about like, oh yeah, I watch it. I'm like, oh, I had no idea.
Okay.
So I mean, it's just maybe not they're watching it live, maybe they'll watch it later, but like it's I mean, it's definitely happening. Like lots of people.
As long as they're watching, Guardian's eventually getting around to it. Like I said, even if they're not watching live, these shows are uploaded to the YouTube channels after the live feed's over, so you can always come back and watch it later, which I'm okay with.
It's fun to watch. It's fun to talk about, regardless. Again,
it is.
Like, it doesn't even matter.
There's not many people I could talk to about this kind of stuff.
Absolutely not. People don't want to talk to about it. And you know the irony about the whole reptilian idea is like I remember I worked with this guy who he's like, I used to make fun of him. I actually feel bad for it. Every time I start going down this path, I'm like, man, I used to make fun of this guy for thinking like that. And he's like, I remember one day I was at work and he was talking about how when they went to the moon, they found structures, and that's the aliens that were there told them not to come back, and that's why we never got back. And I was like, man, this guy is absolutely bonkers. And then he was talking about one day he was talking about reptilians, and like I was like, man, this guy's out of control. And like at that point in time, again, I was a huge supporter of the wars and like, oh, we need to go bomb everybody that's talking crap about us, everything. Like my whole, I don't even know, I don't recognize the person that I was anymore. It doesn't make any sense.
See, I've always been this way. So.
I mean, I don't know how to explain it, man. I've always been a weird thinking person, but like, I don't know, at that point in my life, like maybe I wanted to believe in something, and like the idea for me was to join the military and make a difference in the world that way. But in reality, that's not making a difference in the world. And many people I know that have joined the military realize that, like, you're part of a machine. You're part of something different than we think. That's why the idea of, I'm not going to say it, but the idea, supporting this, supporting that, like, how many people I tell, thank you for your service at work. I stopped doing it because
it's the same. I never
don't care anymore. They don't like they don't want to be in there. They're there to collect a paycheck. And there's a lot of stuff going on that people don't understand. The military is taking on a life of its own.
Like at my airport, we have a heavy military, passengers, because we live near Fort Gordon, which is a military, place. So we get every day, all day long, military coming in and out.
But, and I mean, I don't want people to get the wrong idea. Like, obviously, I have friends that are in the military. I support people. However, again, I'm not going to support war. I'm not going to pretend I support war anymore. Like humans are, they got to stop doing it, man.
The military is supposed to protect our own territory, not go out over there and try and cause fights. Now they come over here and try and start trouble, and then that's different.
One of the common ideas is, they're fighting to protect our freedom, and like that's been an idea that's it's almost laughable to say anymore. But
no, it is. Like this whole excuse about going somewhere for oil. Years ago, I used to work with a guy. He used to be in the military, and they were sent to, it might have been Iraq, for the oil. And he told me they were literally ordered to take those barrels of oil and just dump them out. That's not why they were there. It was just an excuse to go over there. He told me this firsthand.
So again, the idea around Iraq is something way, way bigger and more cosmic. So again, Iraq is said to be the first landing
civilization on Earth. Yeah.
Right. The first landing place of these beings. There's supposed to be advanced stuff buried in the sands there. And again, that's that I believe that artifacts said to be found, like all kinds of stuff, man.
And what's the one place nobody wants to go to for vacation? Iraq.
Right, and it's been the most war-torn spot in the history, dude. Like all throughout our history, that whole area is war-torn. And like again, the Bible talks about it. The Sumerian tablets talk about it. How this was their spot. This is where they kept all their advanced technology and all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's just all an excuse to keep us away.
Yep.
And not to question it. You're like, oh, it's just Iraq again,
Yeah, just war. No big deal. Nothing going on here. That's the cover
story. We're so used to it. We're numb to it now.
Dude, war has been. We've been at war my entire life. Like, has been nothing but war, so it doesn't surprise me anymore. Like the idea that Putin is invading this, like. Why the hell does that matter compared to like all the crap that we've done? Like, why is that any different? Like, that's something that'll get me yelled at and be like, "Oh, you're just a sport." No. Like, tell me how that's different than what we did in Iraq, and I'll shut up. But it's not.
Well, I hear you.
And like again, I have friends that are in the military who went to Iraq, who have told me, confirmed with me that there was never any weapons of mass destruction. Never.
Oh no.
It's a cover story. It's been admitted. I don't know. Again, that'll probably get me all. I don't care who I offend, honestly, man. Like, I stopped caring about who I offend. But anyway, it's about time.
Yeah, it's been an hour now. Now you got to get to your kids and get ready for your job.
T done ran through me, man. I got to pee, to be honest.
That happened. All right, so we'll wrap up here, and we'll come back on next Tuesday and cover something else.
Dude, I bought every single one of the Buddha chakra teas that there was. I went a little overboard. Every one of them. I bought a box of all of them, dude.
Why not?
All the chakras.
Oh, you gotta unclog your chakras.
Freaking works, dude.
Mm.
It has been
Wait,
helping
chakras?
me.
They're real. That's a real thing.
I've
Your
decided I'm
energy
gonna
works.
take the Law of One information serious at least and try to heal all the chakra areas, but we'll talk about that later.
That'd make a good episode one day. Metaphysics, the chakras, third eye, all that stuff.
Yeah, that actually might be good.
Mm-hmm.
That's some of the stuff that they were teaching. The Anunnaki were teaching the select initiates too. So
What they call New Age, and people frown upon for some reason.
Yeah, because we're stuck in our ways, man.
Mm-hmm. Right,
But in any case,
we'll get together sometime and figure out a topic for next show, and I'll create a new ad for it.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, I'll catch you later. Thanks for being on tonight.
You have a good night, my friend.
You too. See ya.
You are most conscientious.
All right, so we're going to wrap up here. That was my buddy Josh, or JB333, which is a good name for him. He's really big into synchronization, so make sure you support him and listen to his podcast. You can find links to those in our Facebook group. And that's about it for tonight. We'll see you next Tuesday night, same time, same place. Don't know what the subject will be, but it will be something as far as the mysterious universe goes, and make another chronicle about it. And if you haven't already, do as this says right here. And don't forget to subscribe. Give us a like if you like this video. Leave some comments. Show us your support. That way the YouTube algorithm will push these videos out and make them show up in other viewers' recommendations so we can get more people to watch our stuff. All right, so once again, I'm Ricky. This is Chronicles of a Mysterious Universe. I will catch you next Tuesday night. Have a good night.